purpose of this talk is to help people understand why it's important to talk about people the way they ask to be talked about, what that means, and hopefully convince people to do it. Because this is a thing that you can take action on. This is something where you can make a difference in the world and in people's lives. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Raphael Cruz or Joanne Rowling. You may know them by the names Ted Cruz and J.K. Rowling. And the reason you know them by that name is that those are the names they choose. They hate their names. Ted Cruz hates the name Raphael. J.K. Rowling hates the name Joanne. Think about what a jerk I would be if I went around insisting on talking about Joanne Rowling this, and wow, Joanne Rowling that, and Raphael Cruz is such a bad politician. I'd be being a jackass. I'd be being a jerk. Because when someone has a nickname, you call them by the nickname, even though it's not their birth name. And yet, oddly enough, Ted Cruz thinks that I should be called by my birth pronouns. J.K. Rowling insists that I'm not really a woman, but I am the gender I was assigned at birth, and I'm stuck with that gender forever. But she's not stuck with the name Joanne. Ted Cruz really is a Ted Cruz. It's not a name I would claim as a flag of pride, but it is his name. He's a Ted Cruz. He's not a Raphael Cruz. Because I treat them with respect, even when they don't treat me with respect. And identity, and the expressions and acknowledgements of identity, like pronouns, like names, they're about respect. They are fundamentally about treating other people with respect. Treating them like people. Terry Pratchett, one of my favorite authors, said that evil starts with treating people as things. Treating people not like people, but like objects, like things. And that's fundamentally respect, is treating people like people, treating them like they matter. There's a Seinfeld episode where George is waiting to use a payphone. This was back when there were payphones. And he's been waiting for a while patiently, and the person hangs up, and this woman just walks up and grabs the phone and starts dialing. And George's like, I was waiting for that. And she's like, and just keeps using it. And he stands there fuming and he says, we live in a society. Because we live in a society. We don't live in a society of laws. Laws are nice. In fact, laws are essential. But they're not what stops us from grabbing the phone or cutting in line at the restaurant or saying really nasty things when walking past someone. It's actually legal to walk past someone and go, you're such a jackass. For no reason, or worse words. It is legal to thumb your nose at someone. It is legal to wear a t-shirt that says horrible things. We don't do it because we're civilized. We don't do it because we live in a society. I don't think anybody here would walk around casually using the N-word. I think we're all civilized enough not to do that. But a lot of people would still talk. I'm about to use a slur. I apologize for that. We're talking about welching on a debt or getting gypped on a deal. Those are racial slurs. Those are actual hurtful racial slurs. People who are Welsh really hate that going back on your word, that their identity is used as a slur for going back on your word. It's not fair. It's not right. And, most people, once you tell them that, they're like, oh, crap, I didn't know that. I'm going to stop saying that. Because it's racist, and we're not racists here. We treat each other with respect. But there are kids in school. A girl whose name is Susan, and her teachers insist on calling her Matt. How disrespectful is that? She told you her name was Susan. Why are you calling her Matt? You know, I was born Michael. So we call a dead name. I was born Michael. But I went by Mikki my entire life. Even when I thought I was a guy, I went by Mikki. I liked it. It felt better. It was more natural. And nobody called me Michael. Who respected my name. But there are people now who would look at my name and say, no, your name isn't really Mikki, it's Michael. That doesn't make any sense at all. That makes literally no sense at all. They would respect my name as long as they thought it meant the same gender as my birth name. But they'd stop respecting it the minute they thought it meant some gender other than my birth name. That's fundamental disrespect. And in fact, it's deliberate disrespect. People have a lot of excuses for that. They say, well, remembering people's pronouns is too hard. Well, is it too hard to remember people's nicknames? Because I don't hear you calling Ted Cruz Raphael. People also worry that they'll get someone's pronouns wrong, that they'll slip up and they'll say, well, Mikki said this, and as he was saying, and then they're embarrassed. Like, oh crap, what do I do now? I used he, him for Mikki. Well, what do you do if your name is, Jonathan, but you go by John or Jack? Let's say your name is Jonathan, but you go by Jack, right? Well, someone says, as Jonathan would say, Jack, and they go, oh, sorry, Jack. That's literally all it takes to be a civilized person. Just like you would do, you wouldn't turn to this hypothetical Jonathan and go, oh my, or hypothetical Jack, and go, oh my God, Jack, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to call you Jonathan. I feel like crap. Please don't think I'm bigoted against Jacks. I just forgot. No, that's not how you'd handle it. Like, oh, sorry, Jack. Same thing with pronouns. If you get someone's pronoun wrong, and you say he about me, and he goes she, you go, oh, sorry, she. And you're done. That's all it takes to be civilized. That's all it takes to treat people with respect. There's an online quote, I can't remember who said it, about the current political environment, which goes, I just don't know how to tell you that you ought to care about other people. I don't know how to tell you. Actually, I do know how to tell you. It's why I'm here today. I'll tell you why to treat other people with respect. It's because we live in a society. If you're part of the majority, if you're in a position of power, if you feel the need to hurt someone else by treating them with disrespect, you can do that. But unfortunately, it's not. I'd say you're not always going to be the one in power, but the reality is power doesn't change hands all that often. You probably will be. But maybe someone you love won't. Maybe someone you love, let's say you're homophobic. You really hate all those gays. And your best friend is gay and scared to tell you. And every time you talk about them gays, your best friend dies a little inside. Or your cousin, or your friend, or your friend's friend. Every time you talk about women drivers, your friend whose wife drives a truck bites his tongue because he doesn't want to get in a fight with you. Every time Uncle Ben talks about them black people, Notice I'm using ignorant grammar here. That's just people who do that are generally pretty freaking ignorant. Even if they're not ignorant of how to be civilized, they're ignorant of why. The fundamental reason to treat people with respect is don't be evil. Treat people like people. Treat people like they matter. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The old golden rule, right? It's funny that a lot of people who are speaking in favor of traditional values seem to be missing out on that one. Love your neighbor as yourself. This may not be the right venue to be leaning on that one, but seriously, people, it's been around for a long time. And language matters. You notice that we call ourselves Seattle Atheist Church. We talk about why we call ourselves an atheist church, but why do we call ourselves an atheist church? And the answer is that church is evocative of certain things. Church is evocative of community, of fellowship, of people who get together regularly and build something greater than themselves, who share a common ideal. And when people started Seattle Atheist Church, they started it with the goal of getting the benefits of community, of society, of conviviality that people get from churches without having to believe in a God or the supernatural. When we call ourselves Seattle Atheist Church, that changes how people think about us and how we think about ourselves. And in the same way, pronouns change how we think about people. My daughter, Rage, has asked us to use he, she, he, him, she, her, they, them, or it, its when talking about it. Not that we pick one of them and use it, but that we use all of them. I'll tell you, you think it's hard to remember the right pronouns for someone? Try remembering the right pronoun in a pronoun rotation for someone. It's not trivial. It takes work. That's part of the point. The point is, I don't mind putting in a little work to make someone more comfortable. I don't mind it because I live in a society. I'm civilized. I treat people with respect, including my kids. But also, when I started using multiple different pronouns for Rage, I found that it changed the way I thought about him. This is my kid. I have been raising this kid for the past 17 years. You'd think I'd have a pretty fixed idea of who my daughter is. But it changed how I thought about them when I started using their preferred pronouns. Because I had to stop and think, what is Rage's relationship with her gender? It's sure not she's a girl, but it's also not he's a guy. Rage is genderqueer. Rage has a non-standard gender. And it's important to Rage that people know this. People including his parents. You might wonder why it's important to people. It's a question I got a lot when I came out as trans. Because I'd already been painting my nails. I loved having painted nails. I'd been wearing skirts by preference for a decade. I was just a guy who wore skirts and painted his nails. And people are like, why do you care? Why would you want to become a woman? Why would you want to express that why would you want people to think why are you a woman? Why do you care about being a woman when you can already do all these same things as a guy? Just be a guy who wears makeup and paints his nails and wears skirts and likes romance novels. It took me years to figure out the answer to that question. I knew it was important to me right from the start, but I didn't know why. I thought that was a really good question. I thought it was such a good question that I spent years thinking about it. And before that, I said, I don't know, but it is. Please do it because it's important, even though I can't explain why. But about 6 months ago, I figured out why it's important to me. I figured out why I care whether you and you and you and you think that I am a man with effeminate mannerisms and painted nails, or a woman with womanly mannerisms who paints her nails like women do. And it turns out that's why. It turns out that's why it matters to me. Because every society has rules for understanding other people's actions. And those rules differ by gender. This isn't about whether you're sexist. This isn't about whether you treat people egalitarianly. I'm pretty sure everyone here does. I know everyone here does their best. I know that everyone here does their absolute best to treat men and women with equal respect and kindness. And we still always unavoidably, as products of our society, interpret the same actions differently if they're taken by a man or taken by a woman. I know this because I thought I was a man, and now I know I'm a woman, and I take the same actions. I paint my nails. I still wear skirts. So what's different? You see a man wearing a skirt. You see someone being transgressive. You see someone making a statement that they do not conform to society's expectations, that they are not afraid to live their truth and wear a skirt even though they're a man. If you see a woman wearing a skirt, you see a woman wearing a skirt. It doesn't say anything about her at all. You see a woman with painted nails? She's got painted nails. You see a woman without painted nails? It's a little bit odd, actually. Even nowadays, most women in our society paint their nails, right? But still, it's perfectly within the range of what women do. But you see a man wearing lipstick? That man is making a statement. Maybe it's about society, maybe it's about masculinity, maybe it's boy named Sue. Maybe he's just that confident in his masculinity that he can wear lipstick and still be a man, which is a very different thing than when a woman wears lipstick, where she's saying, I want to look nice today. I felt like, drawing a little attention to my lips and making my smile stand out a bit more. Very different statements, very different reactions. I cry at movies. I cry like a freaking faucet at movies. Oh my God, do I cry at movies? My family teases me. I'll be watching a movie, tears just running down my cheeks. And I've done that I've done that for decades now. I did that when I thought I was a guy. I do it now that I know I'm a woman. And it means different things. Because a guy who cries at movies is sensitive. He might also be weak. Depends on your subculture. But by God, is he sensitive. He is a guy who has feelings and he's in touch with his feelings and he is comfortable with emotions. And the woman who cries in movies is a woman. One of the big things I lost when I realized I was a woman and came out as trans, I lost a lot of my exceptionalism. I had been a guy who was comfortable with it, so comfortable with his masculinity, he wore skirts and painted his nails. I cried in movies because I was sensitive and in touch with my emotions. And I was a feminist because I stood up with my privilege. I stood up for the people who were less privileged in our society. And I was an active ally to women in our still very sexist society. I'm still a feminist, and it means something very different coming from a woman. Because coming from a woman, feminists are advocating for themselves and other people, other women like them. And coming from a man, being a feminist is a statement that they can see beyond themselves, that they will speak up for the disadvantaged, for other people who need to be spoken up for. I used to have a shirt talked about being a feminist. I'm not comfortable wearing it anymore. Not because I'm not a feminist. I'm still a feminist, I assure you. But because it doesn't mean the same thing. And that's why my pronouns matter. That's why it matters to me that when you look at me, you see a woman. Not because I have some weird kink about being a woman, although figuring out as a lesbian really did help make sense of a whole bunch of things that have been really confusing to me and about me. But it's not about, I want to be seen as a woman so I can be beautiful. Honestly, I was a lot more handsome as a guy than I am beautiful as a woman, and I probably always will be. It's not about ego. It's about wanting to be seen as the person I am. When I do this, I want you to see this as thoughtful, like this is thoughtful for a guy. The guy doing this, he's not looking thoughtful. He's looking effeminate. He might be looking deliberately coy, maybe gender provocative for some reason. A woman doing this is thoughtful. It's important to me that when you look at me, you see me. And when you interpret what I do, you interpret it the way I mean it, not the way you would have interpreted it when you thought I was a guy. I don't know how many of you remember what I was like as a guy. I thought I was a guy for the first 4 years at Satellite Atheist Church. You can look back in the videos and see a whole bunch of videos of me with a great big beard. It's a bit of a shock. I went back and looked at some of them a few months ago, and it is very strange to see myself with a big deep voice and a beard like this. I mean, seriously, if you're really wondering, why I have she, her next to my name, go back and watch one of those videos and look at the difference. Speaking of which, look at that she, her after my name. Well, I have it there for a really important reason, which is that I like to make it easy for people. Even if I showed up with a great big beard, I'd still be a woman. I'd be a woman with a beard. There are women with beards. There are women who were assigned female at birth, who have 2 X chromosomes and who have beards. They're still women. None of you would go, oh, you're not really a woman, you have a beard. What the hell, people? You wouldn't do that. But I like to make it easy for people. I wear lipstick on Zoom, and I have she, her there, so that people find it easy to remember my pronouns. Let's make it intuitive. Why not? I can do that. But I have a housemate. She's a trans woman like me. And sometimes she's having a really rough time, like we all do. And when I'm having a really rough time, I have trouble brushing my teeth. I have trouble showering. I have bipolar, by the way, and it can get really rough sometimes. And my housemate, when she's having a really rough time, sometimes she doesn't have spoons to shave. And she has a beard and a mustache. And it has never once occurred to me to think she was a guy. I think, oh wow, she's having a really rough time right now. She doesn't even have the energy to shave. Because I treat her with respect as a human being, and she's told me she's a woman. So if I ever get on here and I have stubble, it's because I didn't have the energy or the resources to shave. And I still want you all to say she, her, and I want you to know I'm a woman. Because I am. But there are people on here like Eva, who has she, her. after her name, and I don't think any of you would look at Eva and go, well, Eva is surely a trans woman. She surely has a Y chromosome somewhere in there, you know? I don't think anyone would, look at Jack and be like, wow, Jack, it's amazing what those testosterone injections have done for you. But Jack has he, him next to his name. And there's a reason for that, and that's that they are being active allies to me. They are taking an action of respect. I want to encourage everyone on here who doesn't have their pronouns next to their name to put them there. Not just encourage, I'm going to ask you, even if you only do it for this talk, please put your pronouns after your name. There's little 3 dots in the upper right corner of your little self view. You go to rename at the bottom, and just put pronoun /pronoun close paren after you. And there's a reason why that's the act of an ally. And it's because it normalizes statements of gender. It normalizes people telling you, these are my pronouns. Because if no one does that except trans people, then yeah, we'll be reminding you, hi, I'm a woman, Someone else here, my son Ash will be reminding you, hey, I'm a guy. But we'll also be outing ourselves as trans. If the only people who tell you what the pronouns are trans people, then anyone who's telling you their pronouns is saying, hey, I'm trans. And that's still a risky thing to do. That can still get you in trouble. There are people who will punch me in the face for telling them I'm a woman. So that's really messed up. But they're out there. They exist. So when you put your pronouns after your name, you are telling me that I'm safe with you. You are telling me that you respect me. And you're also making me safer from anyone else who would hurt me for being trans. You're being an ally and you're saying, hey, I'm there for you. I see you. I want other people to see, I want it to be safe for you to tell people, this is you. So I really appreciate that. Everyone who's been comfortable doing that, thank you. I really appreciate that. Those of you who don't, honestly, I'm just assuming it's technical difficulties. But even if you said, hey, Mikki, I wasn't comfortable doing that. I did not want to be an ally. You get to do that. There is no law against not being an ally. There's no law against treating people with disrespect. I think we have group rules against being a transphobic jackass here. So someone typed in the chat, well, he's really a man. No matter what he says his name is, and no matter what pronouns he says, he's really a man. We'd kick your ass out. We don't need that kind of bullshit here. But you don't have to be an active ally. I won't even hate you for it. I'd be a little sad, especially if I thought you were a friend. But I wouldn't be like, how dare you not put your pronouns there? People got to be who people got to be. But it's awfully nice to see how many people stepped up and changed their pronouns. Makes me feel safe. Makes me feel seen. And it's really important to me to feel seen. I was there when my older son figured out that he was trans. It was fucking beautiful. He was standing there, we were talking. And suddenly he was like, I don't know the exact words, but basically, he was like, oh shit, I'm a guy. And I watched his body language change. I watched him suddenly be comfortable in his skin. It was amazing. But I also watched my perception of him change. Because he had these mannerisms that just didn't feel right. They seemed really awkward. They just didn't fit. And then he said, I'm a guy. And it made perfect sense. Because the feminine mannerisms hadn't fit because he was acting them out. What we call performative femininity. He was acting out the feminine mannerisms, and the masculine mannerisms hadn't made sense, hadn't felt like they fit, because we all thought that he was a woman. And as soon as he figured out his gender, everything made sense. His mannerisms suddenly became clear and comfortable to see. All of that dissonance is just gone. There are people who say that being trans is a phase, that it's a cultural, social contagion, or whatever else. I'll say I've seen it myself. I've seen someone realize that they're actually a different gender than they've been told they were. And I've seen the joy, I've seen the comfort, and I've seen the clarity, the harmony that it brought to them. You will never convince me that someone just thinks they're trans. Do you know how hard it is to be trans? It is not for the faint of heart. There are people who will punch you. There are a lot of people who won't hire you. There are people who will sneer at you on the bus. Nobody would pick being trans if they had a choice. Are you kidding? It's hard work. People don't pick being trans. People tell people they're trans because they can't stand not to. If there's ever someone who deserved your respect, it's the people who put their life, their safety, their future, their career, their family on the line to say, please, see me for who I am. You think it's hard to remember someone's pronouns? Try having someone not remember yours.